It was a quiet moment in the hospital room, but the weight of my mother's words hung heavy in the air. "Just tell them you fell down the stairs," she whispered, her voice barely audible, yet sharp enough to cut through my pain. Her perfectly manicured nails dug into my arm, a silent reminder of the control she wielded. I lay there, immobilized in the sterile hospital bed, my body aching from the trauma I'd endured. The throbbing in my back was relentless, a searing pain unlike anything I'd ever felt before, not even during my brother Marcus's previous outbursts. My mother's eyes, usually so composed, flickered with urgency. "Remember, Marcus is about to start medical school," she continued, her tone laced with desperation. "We can't let this incident ruin his future. Our family's reputation depends on it." At 24 years old, I was no stranger to these requests. This wasn't the first time my mother had asked me to lie about my injuries to protect Marcus, her golden child. But this time, the pain was unbearable, and the lie felt heavier than ever. "My name is Emma Sullivan, and for as long as I can remember, I've walked on eggshells around my older brother. Marcus was the shining star of our family, brilliant, charming, and destined to become a doctor. To the outside world, he was perfect. But behind closed doors, his temper was a ticking time bomb, ready to explode at the slightest provocation. And I was often the target. This particular incident began over something as simple as money. Marcus had come to me, all smiles and promises, claiming he needed my savings to cover his medical school application fees. "It's an investment in our family's future," he'd said, his voice smooth but edged with expectation. When I refused, explaining that I'd worked hard for that money, his charm vanished. His face darkened, and before I could react, he grabbed me and threw me against our parents' granite kitchen counter with such force that I felt something crack in my spine. The pain was immediate, blinding, and I crumpled to the floor, gasping for air. Hours later, I found myself in the hospital, surrounded by the hum of medical equipment and the sterile smell of antiseptic. A nurse appeared in the doorway, her voice calm but professional. "Mrs. Sullivan, the doctor would like to discuss your daughter's x-rays." My mother straightened up, smoothing her designer blouse with practiced grace. "Of course," she replied, her tone polished, as if she were attending a social event rather than standing by her injured daughter's bedside. Before leaving, she turned to me, her eyes narrowing slightly. "Emma knows what to say, don't you, sweetheart?" I nodded weakly, the weight of her expectations pressing down on me. As she followed the nurse out, Marcus, who had been lurking silently in the corner of the room, finally spoke. "You better keep your mouth shut, little sister," he said, his voice low and laced with that familiar, threatening edge. "Nobody will believe you anyway. I'm the one going to medical school, remember? They'll trust my version of events." The worst part? He was probably right. Marcus had always been convincing, a master at twisting the truth to suit his needs. Marcus's ability to manipulate wasn't new. Growing up, he'd convinced our parents of countless lies to cover his violence. When I was 8, he pushed me out of a tree, breaking my arm, but he told them I'd fallen while trying to climb it. They believed him without question. At 16, he twisted my wrist until it sprained, forcing me to hand over my birthday money. He claimed I'd fallen off my bike, and again, our parents accepted his story. Each time, I was left to nurse my injuries in silence, my pain dismissed as clumsiness. Now, lying in that hospital bed, the memories of those incidents flooded back, each one a reminder of the life I'd been forced to endure. Dr. Evans, a kind-faced woman with a no-nonsense demeanor, entered the room, flipping through my charts. "The X-ray shows severe trauma to your lower vertebrae," she said, her eyes meeting mine with concern. "This type of injury is unusual for a simple fall down the stairs." I felt Marcus's gaze boring into me from across the room, a silent warning to stick to the script. "I'm very clumsy," I mumbled, the practice lie tasting bitter in my mouth. Dr. Evans frowned, her skepticism evident, but before she could press further, my mother swept back into the room, her social smile firmly in place. "When can we take her home?" she asked, her voice bright but strained. "Emma has always been accident-prone, haven't you, dear?" Dr. Evans's expression hardened. "Actually," she said, Given the severity of the injury, I'm recommending immediate admission and a consultation with our spine specialist. We'll also need to start physical therapy as soon as possible." My mother's smile faltered, her composure cracking for just a moment. "Surely that's not necessary," she protested. "We have a private doctor who can handle this." "This isn't negotiable, Mrs. Sullivan," Dr. Evans replied firmly. "Your daughter has suffered significant trauma. She needs professional care." For the first time, I saw a flicker of doubt in my mother's eyes, but she quickly masked it, nodding curtly before turning away. That evening, after my family finally left, I was alone with my thoughts, the weight of their expectations suffocating me. That's when a young woman entered my room, her presence like a breath of fresh air in the sterile hospital environment. "Hi, I'm Kate Morrison," she said, introducing herself as the physical therapist assigned to my case. "Let's take a look at what we're dealing with." Her voice was warm but professional, and as she helped me sit up, her hands were gentle yet confident. I winced, the pain shooting through my spine. "Pain scale of 1 to 10, she asked, her pen poised over her notepad. 8, I admitted, my voice barely above a whisper. She nodded, jotting down notes. "I'm going to need to see your previous medical records," she continued. "Dr. Evans mentioned some concerning patterns in your x-rays, old injuries that never properly healed." My heart started racing, panic rising in my chest. I'm just clumsy," I stammered, clinging to the lie I'd been trained to repeat. Kate stopped writing and looked at me directly, her green eyes kind but piercing. "Emma," she said softly, "I've worked with many patients over the years. I know the difference between accidental injuries and other kinds." Something in her voice broke through the walls I'd built around myself. For a moment, I wanted to tell her everything, the years of Marcus's rage, my parents' complicity, the constant fear that had defined my life. But his threat echoed in my head, along with my mother's conditioning to keep family matters private. "I can't," I whispered, tears burning in my eyes. "You can't," Kate repeated gently, "or you're afraid to?" Before I could answer, my phone buzzed with a text from my mother. "Remember, not a word about Marcus. We're telling everyone you fell. Don't disappoint the family." Kate saw the message before I could hide my phone, and her expression shifted from concern to determination. Kate pulled up a chair beside my bed, her demeanor calm but resolute. "Emma, I want to show you something," she said, taking out her tablet and pulling up a series of x-rays. "These are your scans from today, but look at these shadows here and here." She pointed to several spots on my spine, her finger tracing the faint lines of old injuries. "These show old fractures, Emma. Multiple injuries that healed without proper medical attention." I stared at the screen, my heart pounding. The evidence of my past was laid bare, a silent testament to the years I'd spent hiding the truth. "I can help you," Kate continued, her voice gentle but firm. "But only if you're willing to tell me the truth. Whatever you're afraid of, whatever threats you're under, I promise you there are people who will believe you, who will help you." For the first time in my life, someone was offering me a way out, a lifeline I'd never dared to imagine. But the fear was overwhelming. Could I trust her? Could I risk everything by speaking up? As if reading my thoughts, Kate added, "You don't have to decide right now. But know this, as your physical therapist, I'm mandated to report suspected abuse. These injuries tell a story, Emma. The question is, are you ready to tell yours?" I looked at her, then back at my phone, where my mother's threat still glowed on the screen. 24 years of silence weighed against the possibility of finally being free. My voice trembled, barely a whisper, as I spoke. "I think I'm ready to talk." Kate kept her word. The next morning, she returned with Dr. Evans and a social worker named Diana. As I began sharing my story, years of carefully hidden trauma spilled out like water from a broken dam. I told them about growing up with Marcus's unpredictable rage, how my parents had always protected him, convinced his brilliant future was worth any price, even my safety. I described the countless accidents that were anything but, the broken fingers when I was 12 because I'd used his computer, the cracked ribs at 16 because I'd embarrassed him in front of his friends, and now, the devastating injury to my spine. Diana listened intently, taking detailed notes. "Your brother's applying to medical school," she asked, her pen pausing. "And your parents are covering this up to protect his future?" I nodded, twisting the hospital blanket between my fingers, the familiar shame creeping in. "They've already paid his application fees," I said. "Mom says he's destined to be a brilliant doctor." "A doctor who breaks his sister's bones," Kate said quietly, her voice tight with controlled anger. "Emma, you realize we can't let this continue." Just then, my phone buzzed again, another text from my mother. "Marcus is coming to visit this afternoon. Remember our discussion?" Kate saw the color drain from my face. "He's not coming anywhere near you," she said firmly. "Not anymore." Within hours, hospital security had been notified, a restraining order was being processed, and my room was moved to a secure wing with restricted access. For the first time in my life, people were protecting me instead of my abuser. But my mother wasn't ready to let go of her control. She showed up that afternoon, her face a mask of barely contained fury. "What do you think you're doing?" she hissed, having somehow talked her way into my room. "Do you want to destroy this family?" Marcus called me crying. "They won't even let him in to see his own sister." "Mrs. Sullivan," Kate's voice cut through the air as she entered the room, her tone calm but unyielding. "You're not supposed to be here." "I'm her mother," my mother snapped. "You have no right to keep me from my daughter." "Actually, we have every right," Kate replied. "Emma has reported a history of domestic abuse, and as her healthcare provider, I'm obligated to ensure her safety." My mother's face went pale. "Abuse? Don't be ridiculous. Emma's just attention-seeking. She's always been jealous of Marcus's success." "We have x-rays spanning years," Kate continued, unmoved. "Documentation of multiple injuries consistent with physical assault. Emma's finally telling the truth, and there's no going back." "The truth?" My mother laughed bitterly. "The truth is that she's trying to ruin her brother's life. Marcus has a future. He's going to help people." "Help people?" I found my voice, surprising myself with its strength. "Like he helped me by breaking my bones? By making me live in constant fear?" "Emma," my mother warned, but I wasn't finished. "No, Mom. I'm done protecting him. Kate's right. There's no going back. I won't let you silence me anymore." Security arrived moments later, escorting my protesting mother out of the room. As her voice faded down the hallway, I began to shake, the full weight of what I'd done hitting me like a tidal wave. Kate sat beside my bed, her presence steady and reassuring. "You did the right thing, Emma," she said softly. "It won't be easy, but you're not alone anymore." She was right, it wasn't easy. Over the next few days, my father called repeatedly, alternating between threats and pleas. Marcus sent messages through various numbers, each one more menacing than the last. But Kate and the hospital staff remained vigilant, screening my calls and visitors, ensuring my safety. My physical therapy sessions with Kate became a sanctuary, a place where I could focus on healing not just my body, but my spirit. She listened without judgment as I processed years of trauma, offering support and practical advice. "Your spine is healing," she told me during one session, "but we need to work on your emotional healing too. Have you considered pressing charges?" I had. Diana, the social worker, had already discussed my options, explaining that the documented injuries combined with my testimony would make a strong case. But the thought of facing Marcus in court terrified me. "He'll find a way to charm everyone," I said, wincing as Kate helped me through a stretch. "He always does." "Not this time," she replied firmly. "You have evidence, Emma. You have witnesses. Most importantly, you have your voice, and we're all listening." As if to prove her point, Kate showed me a letter that had arrived that morning. The medical school where Marcus had applied was rescinding his acceptance, pending an investigation. Apparently, once my story broke, others had come forward with reports of his violent behavior. His carefully crafted facade was crumbling, and for the first time, his actions were catching up with him. "Your brother's actions have consequences," Kate said, watching me read the letter. "And so do your parents' choices to enable him. You're not responsible for protecting them anymore." I looked at Kate, this woman who had become so much more than just my physical therapist. She'd given me something I'd never had before, the courage to stand up for myself. "I want to press charges," I said finally, my voice steady with resolve. "Not just for me, but for anyone else he might hurt if he becomes a doctor." Kate smiled, squeezing my hand. "Then that's exactly what we'll do together." 6 months later, I sat in a courthouse, Kate by my side, waiting for the proceedings to begin. The past months had been a whirlwind of police interviews, depositions, and intense physical therapy. My spine was healing, though I'd likely always have some pain. But my spirit, once broken like my bones, was stronger than ever. Marcus sat across the aisle with our parents, wearing a carefully crafted expression of concern. He tried to paint himself as a loving brother who'd made a few mistakes, but the evidence told a different story. My medical records, spanning years of documented injuries, spoke volumes. And I wasn't his only victim. After my story became public, others came forward. 3 ex-girlfriends reported physical abuse, and a former classmate described being hospitalized after Marcus accidentally pushed him down a flight of stairs. Each incident had been buried, just like mine, by our parents' influence and money. The trial was grueling, but the prosecution presented a devastating case. X-rays flashed across screens, each one showing another injury I'd suffered. Medical experts testified about the pattern of abuse. My voice shook but held steady as I described the latest attack that had damaged my spine. Then came the surprise testimony that changed everything. Our childhood nanny, Mrs. Porter, who had left suddenly when I was 13, took the stand. "I tried to report it back then," she said, her voice thick with emotion. "I saw Marcus hurt Emma countless times, but Mr. and Mrs. Sullivan threatened to ruin my career if I spoke up. They said no one would believe me over their son." My mother's perfectly composed facade cracked. My father stared at his hands, unable to meet anyone's eyes. Marcus's face darkened with the familiar rage I knew so well. The verdict came swiftly. Marcus was found guilty of multiple counts of assault and battery. The judge's words rang through the courtroom: 5 years in prison with mandatory counseling. Additionally, this court recommends a permanent ban from practicing medicine. My parents sat frozen as their golden child was led away in handcuffs. Their carefully constructed world of denial had finally crumbled, but the story didn't end there. Kate had helped me see that healing meant more than just physical recovery. With her encouragement, I began volunteering at a domestic violence support group, sharing my story with others trapped in cycles of family abuse. Each session was a reminder of how far I'd come, and it gave me purpose to help others find their strength. "You're an inspiration," Kate told me after one particularly emotional session. I smiled, remembering the terrified girl I'd been in that hospital bed. "I had a good teacher," I said. "You did all the hard work," she insisted. "I just showed you the door. You walked through it yourself." A year after the trial, I stood before a room full of physical therapy students at the local university. Kate had invited me to speak about patient advocacy and recognizing signs of domestic abuse. "Sometimes," I told them, my voice steady with conviction, "the most important part of healing isn't the physical therapy. It's having someone believe you when the whole world is telling you to stay quiet. One person who refuses to look away can change everything." I caught Kate's eye in the audience, remembering how she'd been that person for me. She'd seen past my lies about being clumsy, past my family's carefully constructed facade, and shown me that I deserved better. My parents tried to contact me several times after the trial. My mother left tearful voicemails about family loyalty, begging me to reconsider. My father sent letters promising things would be different, but Kate helped me understand that I didn't owe them forgiveness or another chance to hurt me. "Healing doesn't mean you have to let toxic people back into your life," she'd said. "Sometimes it means learning to choose yourself." And I did choose myself. I went back to school, studying to become a counselor, determined to help others find their voices. I moved into my own apartment, adopted a cat named Luna, and slowly built a life free from fear. The nightmares about Marcus became less frequent, and the pain in my spine became manageable with ongoing therapy. Today, 3 years after that fateful hospital admission, I work full-time with domestic violence survivors, helping them navigate their journeys just as I navigated mine. Kate and I remain close friends, occasionally collaborating when her patients need emotional support alongside their physical therapy. Marcus still writes from prison, claiming he's changed, and my parents still try to guilt me into reconciliation. But I don't respond. Instead, I focus on the family I've chosen, friends like Kate who support and protect me, and the community of survivors who understand my journey. Last week, I received a card from Mrs. Porter, our former nanny. Inside was a photo of me at 12, sitting on our old porch swing, my smile bright despite the bruises hidden beneath my sleeves. On the back, she'd written, "I'm sorry I couldn't protect you then, but I'm so proud of how you've learned to protect yourself." I pinned the photo to my office wall, next to my counseling certification and the thank you notes from clients. It serves as a daily reminder that while we can't change our past, we can always shape our future. Sometimes, all it takes is one person willing to speak up, to fight back, to say enough is enough. For me, that person was Kate, but more importantly, I learned to be that person for myself. And now I'm committed to being that person for others, helping them find the strength to rewrite their stories, just as I rewrote mine. Please feel free to comment below if you liked this. Remember to like and subscribers for more.